Whether you've grown to hate this program or not, certainly you got to acknowledge what Clemson and Dabo Swinney has done over the last decade. It is pretty remarkable over the course of college football history. Take your school, take your program, take your coach, see if they've done anything close to what this has done, considering what was going on before that. Not a bad program, but considering what Dabo inherited, where the program's been, and what they've built and sustained. Shoot. 2021, that was one season. So we're going to dive into it with three of the best from the top. We got Pigskin Pete. Head on over to Pigskin Pete's channel right here on YouTube. They dice it up concerning, I'm not even going to start on down the line. It starts with Clemson, but it goes through college football. It goes through sports. It goes through what's going on in your life. It's good stuff. So just check out Pigskin Pete on YouTube right here. And, of course, DeAndre BGPO Football Funk right here on YouTube as well. And Jason Priester joins me on a regular basis just about every week to talk up Clemson. So you got to catch Jason's work, allclemson.com on SI. Guys, how we doing today?
Great.
I'm amazing. Good, man. How about y'all?
And I'm going to let everybody know, both on the panel here and listening, that I will be liberally using the mute button, not because I want to mute these guys, but because I think we got a little reverb working. So you guys just unmute yourself if you need to, but I'll try to catch that as much as possible. We'll try to get a flowing conversation going here as much as possible. We want everybody to dive into the chat. Leave your comments, your questions. I'll get to your comments and questions. I certainly got a list of questions I would love to hit these guys on. And yes, for the first person who's going to point out that my banner's red and it's not Clemson orange, I'll get to it. Jason can attest. I always got the Clemson orange ready, but I was shuffling around to get this thing pulled together. So Jason, we'll start with you again. Jason Priester on All Clemson. Anything current that could be coming down the pike, whether that's transfer portal, commits, announcement of when somebody's going to commit, anything that's rumbling right now around Clemson?
No, I don't think there's anything imminent in the pipeline. You know, if you'd asked me that a couple of weeks ago, I might would have had a different answer. You know, I thought Sullivan Absher was getting pretty close to committing to Clemson. Ended up going to Notre Dame spring game. Things took a sudden turn. I don't foreshadow him ending up at Clemson anymore. Let's put it like that. But I was kind of keeping an eye on the date May 1st. When kids could enter the portal and still be eligible to play next season. Clemson didn't lose nobody. That's good news. And you know, I'm still kind of keeping one eye on to see if they bring in an offensive lineman transfer. I don't think the coaching staff views it as quite the need they did going into the spring, but I think they would still take a guy if they could find a guy that fits exactly what they're looking for. And it would be a very specific set of criteria. An interior guy, preferably a guy that can come in and play right away at center. And I think it's got to be a graduate transfer with only 1 year of eligibility left.
Pigskin Pete, anything you're hearing?
I always say from May 1st through the end of July, almost any news that comes out of a football program is bad news. So this is sort of the dead period. Now, like he said, we're always looking at transfers or who's going to transfer out and who's going to possibly transfer in. And as far as I know right now, there is one offensive lineman from Coastal Carolina that just entered the portal. And I know the head coach at Coastal Carolina is close with Dabo. So hopefully there's a pipeline there. I don't know. But other than that, I haven't heard anything.
Anything, DeAndre?
I just hope it keeps quiet, just like Pete said. You know, you don't have no off the field. I've been really following the draft lately and trying to keep up with who got drafted and who hasn't. I haven't really been focusing on Clemson football, but you know, I'm excited to see what's going to happen this year. I think we're going to be really, really good, especially on defense. But we're always really good on defense. So, hey.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get to the defense here. Let's swing it on back to 2022. Okay. This is the narrative I keep hearing out of college football fans, and I'm talking about non-Clemson fans. I'm getting blasted with people that are like, anytime I mention Clemson as being elite, oh, they used to be elite. They're done. Didn't you see what happened last year? They're done. They're not elite anymore. You can't talk about them with Alabama and Ohio State, et cetera. But then from the national metrics, the FPI, those sorts of things, the more measured projection of what's going to happen in 2022. It seems like Clemson's jumped back right where they've been for the last 7 or 8 years. Boom, they're going to be number 3, number 4 in the country, something in that range. So I see that out of most of the national people, but fans seem to be going crazy about their 10-3. They're, this is just a completely different program than it was last year. Jason, where do you think we stand on all this? Because I know where I think it is. I got to see a lot more in terms of a downturn to not think Clemson's an elite program.
Yeah, I got to see it go downhill a little bit more than it did just in one season. Looking ahead to next season, and in particular on the offense, like you said, we know what they got on defense. To me, in particular on offense, there's 2 things: you got to stay healthy, and you got to get better quarterback play. There's no doubt about it. DJ Uiagalelei did not live up to expectations last year. Hurt, not hurt. That's just the bottom line. He didn't live up to expectations. And there's a lot of questions surrounding him entering this season, and rightfully so. On the other hand, I think Clemson's got another option sitting behind him that they did not have in Tyson Pumachan last season. Clemson's got another option they can turn to if DJ does not progress the way people want him to progress, the way he's expected to progress. We didn't see a lot of evident progression in the spring game, although I thought his footwork looked better, his decision-making looked better. He was getting the ball out quicker. He looked a little lighter on his feet. I'm just not sure he was that much better. It was kind of hard to get a good gauge on with how fast the defense was on him. They didn't really have time to do a whole lot on offense, and it was very, very vanilla game plan with most of the playmakers on the sidelines. But those are the 2 things that I'm looking for. I think it's far too early to say Clemson's not elite anymore. There's still a ton of talent all over the field. You just got to get better quarterback play, and you got to stay healthy.
What you got, Pete?
Well, I think it's silly to say that they're not elite anymore based off of a 10-win season, the 11th 10-win season in a row under Dabo Swinney. But there's a lot to blame to go around last year. Obviously, DJ did not look good. More than half of the starting wide receivers were hurt for the majority of the year. A lot of drop balls. The offensive line, was a makeshift offensive line. You never knew what was playing what position from week to week. It was a round robin. But I do think that the defense this year is going to be even deeper than the 2018 defense, which was an all-time great defense. I'm not saying they're going to be better, because who knows, but I'm going to say they're going to be deeper. And if you look at Clemson's schedule, it sets up nice for them all the way until you get to the Notre Dame game late in the season. So, I don't see another 3-loss season this year is what I'm trying to say, but we'll see. I mean, they have to win against Notre Dame on the road, and that's really probably their biggest game. But I think that Cade Klubnik coming in as a true freshman is going to be good for DJ. We'll see how long it takes. Will we see another sort of Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence situation where after the 4-game redshirt deal, will they bench DJ for Cade? But I think him nipping at his heels will at least maybe light a fire in him that he didn't have last year.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think Klubnik being on campus and being on the roster and being right on DJ's heels is definitely a good thing for him, no doubt about it. He did not have anybody on the roster that could push him the way Cade Klubnik can this year.
And I think that having people like Will Taylor, Troy, who are quick twist guys will help him. I think close to that receiver, they had all similar receivers, tall guys who were this deep threats. Now you got those quick guys like Winfro. I think that will help. And then I think number 9, the tight end, I think he's going to be a big help for DJ too, for him to get the ball out faster. But the offensive line, we all know the offensive line got to improve. The offensive line don't do much. I mean, he just got killed that Georgia game. I mean, we just saw a guy win the national championship that not a great quarterback that had a great defense. So I think DJ's going to be all right this year with a good running game that we have.
Yeah, I would like to on the running game as well, because this is probably the first time under Dabo Swinney's tenure that you have 3 legitimate RB1 guys. Any one of those guys, Shipley, Moffitt, or Pace, could be the start, the head running back. So as far as depth goes at the running back position, this is probably the deepest that Swinney's had.
Yeah.
Talking about Clemson football, we got Pigskin Pete here. We got Jason Priester from allclemson.com, and we got our guy Dre, BGPO Football Funk. Dre, you had something there.
I would just agree with Pigskin Pete said. I just think that our team is going to be awesome this year. I mean, like I said, I don't know why I think it's Trotter. I don't know why they won't play him at center. And I would also like to see what Christian Light's doing. Christian Lay, I keep calling him Light, but I mean, I would like to see what he's doing, replace some of them. But I just think I think it's kind of bad what we say about as close to not elite no more. Go back and look at I don't know if we finished with the same record as Ohio State, but Ohio State had the same problem this year. So did Alabama.
Dre. Don't take away win from my Buckeyes.
Yeah, but they struggled too. I mean, I didn't see that Oregon loss coming. Everybody had issues this year, and we didn't play Georgia this year, which I thought was a big mistake. The first game of the year with that defense, I don't think we should have brought Wyoming out and played them.
All right, we got some questions coming in. Let's get to it right here. We've got Jason. Let's tackle this one. John Sarian asks, is Ian Reed, top 25 offensive tackle, a good take if Clemson loses out on Sullivan Absher?
I love Ian Reed, but to me, Absher projects more of as an interior guy, two different type of offensive linemen. Absher's a guy that could come in and play center if you want to put him there, more of an interior guy, and Reed's more of a tackle prospect. So kind of apples and oranges there, but I love Ian Reed. If Clemson can really gain some traction with him, I would have no complaints in that department.
Good stuff. Pigskin, what do you think about this? Will Dabo dive headfirst into the transfer portal to grab a running back or wide receiver?
I think headfirst is probably the wrong way to put that. I don't think he's diving headfirst in the transfer portal for anybody, really. I think he plays it smart, though. I know a lot of people don't agree with his, the way that he handles the transfer portal, but I think he's smart about it, and you have to be that way. And to him, it's more about recruiting. It's about the promises he makes to the recruits than it is about anything else. So it may hurt him in the short term, but in the long term, as far as recruiting goes, I think it helps him. And I think he really is just looking for those specific areas of need, like offensive line. Wide receiver, I honestly, I think we're pretty good at wide receiver right now. I mean, you got Adam Randall got hurt. That hurt us, the true freshman phenom coming in from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. But E.J. Williams, Joe Ngata, Spector, Stellato, Taylor, the two Collins guys, Dakari and Bo Collins. You got a bunch of playmakers on the field. It's like I said last year, you had a bunch of true freshmen and redshirt freshmen, and almost all of them got hurt at some point in the year. And, of course, Justin Ross was out with a broken foot for a while, or he was out for a couple of games, and then he kind of hobbled around for the rest of the season. But anyway, I think if they stay healthy, the wide receiver room is just fine right now.
I don't think a lot of people realize that Justin Ross played on a foot with a small fracture in it all season that was suffered in fall camp. It really hurt his explosion and stuff. But to go back to that question, by my last count, Clemson was at 84 scholarships. They got room for one more guy. If they take a portal guy, it's going to be an offensive lineman. I don't see any way, shape, or form they take a running back, wide receiver. Dabo Swinney made it. I actually asked Dabo Swinney back before the spring, were they content with going into the season with 4 running backs, and he was emphatic. Yes, they're fine with that. They usually like to carry 5. They'll go in with the 4 they have, and the walk-ons they have, and he's perfectly fine waiting to 2023 class to get the 5th.
I got a question for y'all. Are y'all shocked that none of the defensive ends transferred out? Because that's like, they go, 5 or 6 deep. They're a defensive end. I mean, are you shocked they did one of them didn't transfer? Because all of them handled to their senior or junior year.
Yeah, there's your answer. The seniors aren't going to transfer out. They have unfinished business, and why would they? And the guys that are behind them, they know that they'll have their shot when a lot of these guys leave after this season. So I don't think I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all either. I got asked that about Cade Denoff and Zaire Patterson several times since the end of the season, and those guys all those upperclassmen announced they were coming back. Was I worried about those two guys maybe looking elsewhere? And I wasn't, because they know their time's coming. They might have to wait a year longer than they thought they would have, but their time's coming, and it's going to be with one of the best defenses in the country that they get an opportunity. I mean, that's hard to pass up.
Yeah.
It is going to be interesting to see if Dabo dives into to Pixie and Pete's point. I'll be shocked if he dives into the transfer portal, but not just this year. I'm talking about in coming seasons, because you look at that transfer portal list in regards to what some schools are doing, and it looks like their recruiting class, like LSU and Oklahoma and USC. And of course, those are new coaches. I understand that. So it's a little bit different situation. They're looking at turning over a roster, but even some established teams with some established coaches, you'll see 8, 10, 12 players. It almost looks like a recruiting class at this point. So the numbers are a little heavier than I anticipated, I got to say there, or really thought they would be. So, all right. We got a question coming in from Mel Graves. Appreciate that, Mel. Can any of you explain why we are playing Notre Dame? So this has become quite the little series between Notre Dame and Clemson, with Clemson with a huge upper hand. But why Clemson's got to go to South Bend again? We just played there the last time. So that was the DJ game, of course, the overtime game. I'm tired of Clemson and the ACC kissing their ass. Notre Dame ain't nothing.
Yeah, this is more like one of those, there's really nothing to see here. They kind of schedule those things in twos, home and home. It just so happened to work out where Clemson went to South Bend twice in a row. Notre Dame will come to Clemson the next time, and it'll even back out.
That's right. And I also believe somewhere down the line, we play each other a bunch over the next 20 years or so. And I think there's some scenarios where there's 2 games at Clemson in a row. So, I think it's much to do about nothing. It's just more about, scheduling that particular year.
Yeah, probably because that was a COVID year, and they had to, make a schedule up. So that's why that probably happened.
Well, Notre Dame was already on the schedule before the COVID year. That matter of fact, because I remember everybody was worried Clemson was going to lose that game off the schedule, and that was the one game Clemson could not afford to lose off the schedule, was the trip to South Bend. But they worked it out, and it all worked out.
And as far as the second part of his question there, he says, I'm tired of the Clemson and the ACC kissing their ass. I don't know how Clemson's kissing their ass, but the ACC certainly has been, and that's a debate that goes on for, why are they allowed to schedule basically an ACC schedule, 5 or 6 ACC games a year, and then still remain independent, and of course be in the ACC and other sports. So I completely understand that thinking. But I don't understand how Clemson is kissing their ass. I'm glad they play Notre Dame on a regular basis. I mean, Notre Dame's a blue blood school.
Yeah, it sucks to see Notre Dame get their ass kissed all the time. I get it. Nobody likes it unless you're a big time Notre Dame fan. But I kind of understand the thought process behind it. The ACC needs Notre Dame in that conference. I mean, if you look at the money these SEC teams are going to be bringing in after Texas and Oklahoma join, and this terrible television contract that the ACC is locked into through 2036, the revenue gaps are just going to keep this. And I don't know how ACC teams are going to compete with SEC teams 10 years down the line if everything stays status quo. I just don't see how the ACC survives. They need Notre Dame. They're doing everything they can to entice Notre Dame to join whenever they get ready to join. I get why they do it. No, we don't got to like it, but I get why they're doing it.
Didn't the ACC have an opportunity before COVID, when all that hit, to say, you want to play football this year? We're your lifeboat. So why don't you sign a 20-year contract if you want to play this year? Otherwise, everybody's playing conference games, and that's all anybody's playing. So we're going to do the same. And if you guys want to play, then let's sign a 20-year contract.
That was the time to strike when the iron was hot, and they missed the opportunity there.
That
Absolutely.
is a very valid argument right there. Very valid.
They had Notre Dame. Who else would they add? UConn. I mean, I don't know who else would go along with them.
from my understanding, from some of the digging that I did, the ACC was close to following the lead of the Big Ten and canceling. And it was Notre Dame who joined up with Clemson saying they would come on board that changed the ACC's mind and got them to play. I don't know how true that is, but I mean, I have been told that from a very reliable source.
I also think, and it's of course it's much more complicated than this, but if the ACC was going to make a move when was all this conference turmoil right after Oklahoma and Texas, and we were all hearing all sorts of crazy rumors about what could happen, UCF, would that not have been a good get? UCF, Notre Dame, bring them into the ACC?
I would have loved UCF or Cincinnati, either one of them.
Yeah.
As long as Notre Dame was one of the teams, I wouldn't have cared who the other team was, because I think they not to be one.
I just think UCF's a sleeping giant. The other Florida schools are down. They're at Orlando with NIL and Disney, and Florida's the best recruiting state in the world. It's just an ACC country. It's traditional ACC country.
I agree with you. And I know geography doesn't matter anymore in college football. That's clear. But geographically, UCF is perfect for the ACC.
So before we get to a next question or next topic, this is the one that I would love to hear from you guys. So, Pete, we'll start with you. So, is Dabo Swinney good for college football? And I'm going to make my little spiel here first. I don't know why this guy gets villainized as much as he does. I don't know that there's a coach out there that gets talked down more than Dabo Swinney, unless his name's Urban Meyer, and he's done that to himself. So, forget Urban Meyer, because, that's an easy target right there. Take the man off a football field, and he's done a lot of stupid things in his life. Okay, I get that. Dabo, to me, Dabo's done nothing but good for college football. His players love him. He's built a great program. He seems to be for good quality life. I just, he's gone on a couple rants where he tried to play the underdog card, and I posted a video because I just thought it was kind of funny that he was whining and complaining, but that's harmless stuff. So I've taken my couple shots at Dabo just because I thought he was kind of ranting and raving about something that didn't exist, but I'm not talking about serious stuff. When it comes to what this guy brings to the table, I just think he's good for college football, and I don't understand the haters myself, Pete.
Well, I certainly don't either. But you know what they say, Mark, if you don't have haters, you're not doing anything right. Let's face it, a lot of the reason that people don't like Dabo Swinney is because he's been he's been dominant in college football for the past 10 years. And a lot of these people are fans of other teams, and they don't like him for that reason. There's some people, that probably don't like him because he's outspoken about his faith, which is weird to me. I don't know why anybody would really care about somebody's personal faith. As far as I know, he's not pushing that on any of his players or staff. So I don't know. I think he is good for football. As far as I know, all he does is defend his program, his coaches, and his players. And I think any good coach would do that. And as far as the stuff where people say he whines and complains and things like that, first of all, half of that I think he's joking. When he does stuff like that, it's like he still does the big joke about little old Clemson. And of course, it's not little old Clemson anymore. Hasn't been for a long time. He still says it because it's funny. That's the way I take it. So I don't understand the hate for Dabo Swinney either. I honestly kind of enjoy it. It gives me stuff to push back with other fans on, because that's sort of what I do on my channel. It's more of a fan. It's not like what Jason does. Jason's very informational. I'm a fan guy. I like arguing with other fans and pushing stuff in their face, and they do the same back to me. But that's I love the people that hate Dabo Swinney. It gives me things to argue with people about. But I think he's good for college football.
I think he's good for college football too. I don't know if there is another college football coach that is quoted out of context more than Dabo Swinney. I mean, I remember I was just waiting for when NIL became official last year, because I knew we were going to see all the screenshots of those tweets, how he was going to retire or quit when players started getting paid. But then when you look at the whole quote, he said, if college football become professionalized and talking about schools paying players, that's when he'd go do something else. He in the same interview, he talks about how he's all for NIL, but he's just always quoted out of context, and I just get tickled by that. But I absolutely think he's good for college football, and I'm like y'all, I don't understand all the hate. If you want to get a good feeling for what people really think about Dabo Swinney, ask his former players.
Yes, exactly.
And nobody goes to bat for that man harder than those guys. And to me, that says everything.
Yeah, I really think that the underdog role, people get tired of that, but people don't see Clemson in the same light as they see Ohio State and Alabama. Ohio State hasn't won a national championship in 7, 8 years. It's not a shot at Ohio State, but I mean, like we say, Notre Dame is a blue blood, but I mean, when was the last time they've really been winning national championships? We are really, I just think people just look down on Clemson because of the small town, small area in South Carolina area, but the north part of the state. I hear people make jokes and say they're the Auburn with no lake. They always look down upon us, and we have put really great talent into the NFL. We won national championships. I give you an example. I asked Mark the other day, why can't we be known as DBU? Look how many great defensive backs that we put into the NFL. AJ Tyrell is really good. Nobody talks about the fact that he comes for Clemson. Curse. I hate Dallas Cowboys, but look what type of season he had. And you got a lot of good DBs that came out of Clemson. Dawkins, Darnell Wolford. I mean, we had several good players that came out of Clemson that are DBs, but you hear about LSU, Texas, which I can't think of any good Texas DBs, but you hear them call DBU. I mean, we have a lot of great talent that comes out of there. And Dabo's right. Sometimes we just look that's just a mistake over there. They got lucky. And we beat probably one of the best teams in college football history by offensive standards in Alabama in 2018. Nobody says, well, look how great that defense was, but everybody would talk about how great Georgia defense was, and they didn't play elite quarterback. And when they had to play elite quarterback, look what happened to them. If it wasn't for those two wide receivers getting hurt,
Hey, look, we just saw a couple of weeks ago how different Dabo Swinney's treated by the media.
Yeah.
He does an interview with ESPN the weekend of the spring game, talks about how what's going on right now is not sustainable, and then he gets crucified for it for a week.
Yeah.
Nick Saban comes out, says the same thing, crickets. I mean, he's just held to a different standard, and I'm not sure exactly why.
And he's right, because if the guy from he's at Texas now, transferred from Ohio State, if he doesn't work out, look how much money he does pocket it. How much are people going to keep playing these players if they don't produce? If DJ don't produce, I think he got, an $800,000 contract with Dr. Pepper. I mean, it's like, well, why should we keep playing these players if they're not going to produce on the field? Texas A&M is about to go the same thing. If they pay this recruit class $30 million to come in, if they don't win, are people really going to still pay out these big deals?
I mean, I don't see how anybody could be against the position that education should come first at college. And that's really all he's saying, is that you don't want to get away from education being the main goal here and just get into professionalizing sports. And I think pretty much every coach in college football agrees with him, whether they say it or not. Now, like Jason said, Dabo Swinney could say something and Nick Saban could say the exact same thing. And for some reason, you crickets whenever Saban says it, but Dabo gets crucified for it. But, it's not that Dabo Swinney doesn't want kids to take an opportunity to earn money. He just wants education to be the main goal. That's all.
Right. Because he knows that only, 3%?
Exactly.
3% go to the pro. I mean, honestly, Justin Ross was considered to be better than T. Higgins at one point, and we just see what happened to him.
It's great to get $1 million deal when you're 18 years old, but that's not. I mean, that's life-changing money, but the long-term money comes with a degree or going into the NFL. It doesn't come with an NIL deal.
Right.
At least yet.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a few things working against him that should not be working against him. I think Pete hit on one. I think people don't like that he expresses his faith, but every time I hear it, it's because he's been asked. He's usually asked, how were you able to build this program? How are we able to do this? And so he credits his faith, he credits his relationship with God. And so that's his authentic answer. That's first and foremost. So he's not pushing it out there on anyone that I can see. Number one. Number two, he's having fun. So for some reason, people don't like people that are successful and they're having fun. They're jealous of that. This guy's having fun and he's successful. He's not walking around with, a frown on his face, yelling at people all the time. And he's not done it the traditional way. He doesn't look like the traditional coach from 1975. So he looks like he's having fun. He has a good time with his players. He's able to be a coach to them, but also be a friend to them at the same time. He's been able to do that very, very, very effectively. And I also think that some people too, you guys all made the point to a certain extent, they're just kind of new to the party. People, because Clemson wasn't winning national championships and was playing in an more obscure conference, the ACC, before Florida State jumped in, they weren't given the credit for what they were accomplishing during the 80s and 90s. They were a better program than most people looking back knew about them, playing in Citrus Bowls and those sorts of things, and not playing, in the type games during that 30-year span that others were. So they're not put in the same category as fill in the blank, USC, Ohio State, Alabama, etc. And they never will be, because just that's how people categorize. They're in the Miami, Florida State class of, okay, this is a new thing, and they're not going to be accepted by some just because of that.
Yeah, and also you got to also look at the fact, like when you talk about Ryan Day, he's a great offensive coordinator before he took the job. Nick Saban, he worked with the secondary. Dabo was this guy just sitting over there. He a CEO. Clemson gave his coordinators all this money for them to come coach here. Brett Venable, Chad Morrissey, they built the program. He was just there as the head, as a figurehead. They don't look at him as being a great coach like those two do. Like those two guys are, like Ryan Day or the guy out of Oklahoma. He went to East Carolina with. I don't know why I can't remember his name, but he's at USC now. They don't look at him like that. Or Brett Venables. They don't look at Dabo like that because he wasn't a coordinator. He was just a receivers coach who had a great idea, and he did a lot of great recruitment. I think that's what they see.
All right. Vahid Ellis, appreciate you being here. Clemson fan from New York City. Looking forward to seeing how the defense does. So I'll spin this question into another one. Basically, he's asking specifically about Brian Bresee, but also we got the Clemson defense. So it was exceptional last year. Shoot, they were scoring in the low 20s and winning games with that defense. And it looks like it could be vintage this year. So, Jason, we'll start with you just in regards to Bresee being back and the defense.
Oh, yeah, Bresee will be back. I mean, if you're talking about 2022, yeah, Bresee will be back. If you're talking about beyond, I'd be shocked if he's not an early entry into the NFL draft next year. Something's gone horribly wrong if he's back at Clemson in 2023. But, yeah, I think this defense, the ceiling is extremely high. The defensive line is as deep and even deeper in spots than it was in 2018. You can go – You can go 5-6 deep at end and tackle, really. And you got guys like Ruka Rojo and Trey Williams who are backups. Those are starting caliber players playing behind Tyler Davis and Brian Bresee. And on the edge, you got KJ Henry and Xavier Thomas starting on one side, Miles Murphy on another side with Justin Masco. I mean, you can just keep rotating guys in and out and keeping them fresh. But to me, the big difference is going to come in the back seven. I know Clemson's losing Skowski. I know they're losing Spector. That's 11 years worth of experience at linebacker. But I think Clemson's going to be faster at linebacker. They're going to be more athletic at linebacker with Trenton Simpson moving inside and Barrett Carter moving into the Sam. I think Clemson's going to be as good, probably even better than they've been at linebacker in quite some time. The football IQ of guys like Carter and Jeremiah Trotter and Simpson is just off the charts, same as it was with Skowski and Spector. And now you get more athleticism and more speed to go along with that. I can't wait to watch those linebackers play this year. It's something that Clemson has not had that type of athleticism at that position in a while.
I like to see what the strong safety what's his name, Zachariah Landry. I can't remember his name. He got hurt.
Landon Sanders.
Yeah, Landon Sanders. I want to see when he gets back too, because him and Cooper are going to make a great tandem at the secondary. I worry about the corner backs a little bit, but I think Wiggins is going to be all right, and you got Fred Davis over there, so I think they'll be all right. But they're just not as proven as the two that just left. And Sheridan Jones is there.
I don't really have anything to add to that. It's like I said at the beginning of the show that this is probably the deepest, even deeper defense than we had in 2018. So they're going to be fun to watch. Well, they're not going to be fun to watch if you're playing against them, but they're going to be fun to watch for me.
Yeah, they won't be fun for opposing offensive coordinators.
No.
But, you touched on the corners, and yeah, Clemson loses 2 first-team All-ACC cornerbacks, so you got to replace both starters. But you got a guy like Sheridan Jones. He's a senior. He's played a lot. You got guys like Malcolm Green, Fred Davis. They've got lots of experience. Davis is a former 4-star guy. And I'm extremely high on both Jaden Lucas and Toriano Pride. I think those are 2 freshmen that you are going to see on the field a lot this season. We saw flashes of it with Pride in the spring game. I mean, I think those guys have bright futures, and I think it'll start early.
Jason, do you have concerns about Brandon Streeter as offensive coordinator?
I really don't. I thought Streeter did a pretty good job when he was offensive coordinator at Richmond. Ran some pretty successful offenses with the Spiders over there. And especially with Kyle Richardson being involved as the passing game coordinator, he's got the air raid background. They ran some really high-powered offenses, is why he was at head coach at Northwestern. I'm kind of excited to see some of the new passing concepts they talked a little bit about in the spring. I thought Clemson's offense had gotten a little stale under Tony Elliott. I thought teams had started picking up on some tendencies, and I thought that started as early as 2019 and never really got addressed. So I'm hoping that we see some differences this year. And, they talked about simplifying some things, getting the balls in the playmakers' hands, using the middle of the field more, because Clemson's not used the middle of the field a lot in recent years, and getting the ball to playmakers out in space. That's some of the things they've gotten away from that they were doing, like, say, 2015, 2016, 2017, and kind of gotten away from, started attacking down the field more once Lawrence got there. But, yeah, I like the idea. I like Brandon Streeter. Let's put it like that. I like Brandon Streeter. I'm willing to keep an open mind. I'm not a doom and gloom guy, so I'm willing to keep an open mind, see how it goes. I think he's going to be just fine as long as he's fully got the reins. He's truly got the reins. I think he'll be just fine.
I want to see how they use Will Taylor, because he looked really good before he got hurt. And fast, quick, twitchy guy. We saw a lot of quarterback runs with him when he got in the game, and I'm really interested to see how they're going to use him.
I'm extremely high on Will Taylor. He's going to be fully moved over to receiver now. No double dipping. They were fixing to move. They were fixing to make that move when he got hurt last year, anyways. But he'll be full. He'll go through fall camp as a receiver, and yeah, I think he'll bring a different dynamic to the offense. Clemson was missing a true slot receiver last year. They didn't have that small, twitchy guy. You had to play Justin Ross and Bo Collins in the slot, and I think it limited some things they could do.
Yeah, I'm the jury's still out on Streeter. I wasn't really super excited about the hire originally, but I like what he's saying. He's saying all the right things. At least he's saying what I want to hear. And Jason touched on some of that. Some more downfield shots, using the middle of the field, getting the tight ends involved more, which has been, the tight ends at Clemson have basically been on a milk carton since George Leggett left. They just don't.
Yeah.
And so all those things I like. So we'll see. Listen, everyone was sort of pretty much done with Tony Elliott. Like Jason said, the offense had gotten kind of stale. So if Tony Elliott leaves, you got to say, if you don't hire Streeter, who's better? I mean, I'm not saying there wouldn't be a better hire out there, but tell me who it is. And so I don't really know if there was anybody better available in the first place. And plus, there's obviously a relationship there with Dabo and the Clemson program in general with Streeter. So it did make sense.
Yeah, I got no problem with Streeter getting a shot. He's already a quarterback's coach. I'm kind of interested to see how this thing works out. I thought at first Dabo might take a look outside for an offensive coordinator, but it didn't take long at all to realize that never was going to happen. He was straight up hired from within. Streeter's been there for a while. He was the guy. And, we'll see how it works out. But I have some confidence in Streeter. I think he'll be all right.
If I'm reading everybody,
Mark.
I was just going to say, if I'm reading everybody correctly on their take on DJ, it seems like you want to see him get more support from the offensive line. You want to see the wide receivers play like they did 5 years ago to judge him, to evaluate him. But at the same time, you're not sold on him. It seems like everybody's kind of in that camp. He had a bad season, but there were reasons he had a bad season outside of him making bad decisions and poor throws.
Combination of both. Combination of both. There's just look. There's no two ways about it. There's still things he has to work on. His footwork, his accuracy, all of those things. I really like DJ. I think he's a good kid, and so it's hard for somebody like me, to bash a good kid. But at the end of the day, you have to play the best player, right? And one of the things that at least from my point of view, that DJ lacks, that you didn't see with, rather you did see with Trevor Lawrence, even Kelly Bryant, Deshaun Watson, is sort of a fire. Now, he's very calm, which is good, but he doesn't seem to really have the fire that those other players had, like sort of the will to win. He's very calm and almost too laid back. Maybe it's the California in him. I don't know. But I like to see a little bit more fire out of my quarterback.
I totally agree. I was on the sidelines for a lot of games last year, including the Georgia game, and I kept waiting. You get used to it after watching guys like Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence and like Pete said, even Kelly Bryant to a degree. You get used to seeing those Clemson quarterbacks kind of flip that switch. And I kept waiting to see it with DJ in that Georgia game, and it just never came. There was one game last year that I thought, hey, there it is. There's that spark. And I can't remember. It might have been the Boston College game, or I can't remember. It was one of those games that
I think that was
real close. It was one of those games that was real close, and they ran him a bunch at the end. I think it was Boston College, but I was like, there it is. He just flipped that switch. He got we saw a little fire from it, but to me, we never saw it again. And I'm kind of with Pete there. I'm wondering if he's a little too laid back, because he seems to be like a really great kid. I'm just not sure exactly what kind of leader he is. And I 100% agree that all of the problems of the offense last year were not on DJ. The receivers weren't very good. You can't start 6 different group of offensive linemen in the first 9 games and expect to have any consistency. Clemson got nothing out of the center position last year, especially over the first half of the season. Matt Backhorst just not cut out to play that position. He's much better at guard. And that's going to be one of the biggest questions going into this season. Have they got that position figured out with Will Putnam?
Yeah. And also, I think I heard Streeter say that DJ was hurt a lot last year too, and I think that's part of his problem. But also, I think him losing weight also will help him out with his movement. So I saw that he, I think in the spring game, and said that he was down to 235 somewhere around there. But
235. But I don't think DJ was 100% healthy ever after the first game. I think he got banged up against Georgia, and he was never healthy after that.
Yeah,
and then he broke the index finger on his throwing hand, had a sprained PCL in one of his knees. I mean, he had several injuries last year.
Yeah, that's one of the other issues aside from injury with DJ is Clemson loves to run quarterbacks. Under Dabo Swinney, that's been a staple of their offense, no matter who the offensive coordinator is. And DJ, he's just not going to be the runner that Deshaun Watson was. He's not going to be the runner that Taj Boyd was. He's not going to be the runner that Trevor Lawrence was. He's not going to be the runner that Kelly Bryant was. He's just not. He's just not as athletic as those guys in the running game. So I think that hurts him a little bit too. Obviously losing weight will help him be a little faster, But at the end of the day, he's just not going to be what those other guys were in the run game. He's just not.
No, he surely isn't. He's not going to be that guy. He might be a guy that can get you a few tough yards, but he's not going to be a guy that can break off a 20-yard run a couple times a game for you in a big moment. He's just not that guy. He's not that fleet of foot.
Right.
I saw somebody, I think it was a Georgia fan, just say that Clemson won't win another national championship again. I mean, people go with spurts. I mean, Georgia took, 40-something years to win their national championship in 1956 before that. So, I mean, you just never know. And I don't want to take over and talk about what I think about Clemson this year, but I think they're going to be much improved. I mean, NC State, it took the NC State a miracle with Justin Ross missing that catch in the end zone, and then Georgia, I mean, it was 10-3. It was 10-3, and it was an INT that helped Georgia win the game. I mean, I just don't. I mean, Clemson's not that far off. I mean, they had a bad year. I mean, it happens. I mean, it happens to everybody. I mean, sometimes it's just a time of the year. Pitt was on the team I really think beat Clemson, but I think a lot of players was out, and then Shipley catches that pass, and Brett Carter and Makubo was in the game as freshmen when they hit that long touchdown pass on them. I mean, there's a miscommunication on that play. So I really don't think people are that far off. I don't know what they're talking about.
I mean, let's be real. Pitt was a really good team last year. Let's give them credit, too. I mean, I think they were better than Clemson was last year, and that's really all it comes down to.
Right.
Now, will that be the same this year? Probably not. I think that Clemson's just obviously a better program, more sustainable program than Pitt is right now. But Pitt had a great team last year and a generational quarterback to lead them.
I don't know about that.
And so NC State seems to be the team everybody's latching onto, and I think they're really good, and they were good last year, and everybody seems to be – I don't know if people stretch a narrative a little bit too much looking for the next team that's going to jump in and challenge the big boys, but NC State, I see them in a ton of top 10s that people are throwing out there, and I don't know if they're that good, but how much of a challenge are they going to be?
Yeah, I think North Carolina State is the team. If somebody's going to give Clemson a run in the Atlantic, that's who it is. If you ask me, pretty much bringing everybody back, got that quarterback back. But they also got to come to Death Valley this year, and I don't think the way they celebrated that victory last year sat well with some of the Clemson players. Dave Dorn smoking that cigar on the sideline and stuff. Granted, it was the first time he had ever beaten them. And all good for him, but I'm really high on that North Carolina State team. I think that's a 10-win team, no doubt about it. I think
you're not worried about Wake Forest offense?
Absolutely not. That is Wake Forest offense against Clemson defense.
Yeah, they struggled last year.
It's one of the biggest mismatches every season. Everybody hypes that game up, and Clemson's defense eats that offense up, and it's not even close. I mean, Clemson's got too much speed on defense for what Wake Forest does on offense, and I don't see it being any different this year. To me, it's North Carolina State. If there's a team in the Atlantic that's going to challenge Clemson, it's going to be North Carolina State. I think they bring a lot back. They got a lot going for them this year. I can't tell you all the guys. I don't follow them that closely. I really haven't looked at their roster since last season, but I just think that's a 10-11 win team. But they got to come to Death Valley, a place they haven't won since 2007. It's been a long time in the early 2000s sometime, I think. It's been a while, so it won't be easy for them to unseat Clemson in the Atlantic.
I'm not as high on NC State as everybody else seems to be for whatever reason. I understand coming back, but first of all, I'm a guy that likes to look at trends. And I don't know if Dave Doran has ever put together two, good seasons in a row. I say good. I mean, 9 or 10 win seasons in a row.
Good for them.
And also, the worst Clemson team in 10 years and the best NC State team in 10 years, it took double overtime for them to win it at home. So, like Jason said, this game's in Death Valley. I'm not saying NC State can't beat Clemson. In college football, anything can happen. But the trend says that that head coach in particular, Dave Dorn, has a history of losing a lot of games that he should win, and I could easily see them losing 3 games this year. One of them to Clemson.
Yeah, they've only won 9 games in back-to-back seasons once under
Yeah.
Dave Dorn.
There you go.
And that was propped up by a horrible non-conference schedule. I guarantee you, East Carolina, Old Dominion, James
I
Madison.
remember East Carolina
You
was
can
pretty
bank
good
on
back in
that.
the day.
What's that?
That was in 2017, 2018.
Terrence West, appreciate you being here. Georgia over Clemson. We got you. No doubt about that. But again, to DeAndre's point, my goodness, it was a 10-3 game with a pick six that decided it. That was, for Clemson being so horrible last year and for Georgia being the most dominant defense we've seen in 15 years, that was a pretty darn close football game.
I still don't think I'm not saying they won't great. Don't get me wrong, but what elite quarterback did they play? I mean, when they played Alabama the second time around,
What elite quarterback did they play?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When they got Bryce Young lit them up.
Bryce Young was not elite. If Bryce Young wasn't elite, I don't know who's elite. There's no elite quarterback.
That's only one. That's the only one I can go with. And then he got this.
Well, I'm going to go with Bryce Young.
Yeah, outside of you.
I just watched about every player on that defense hear his name called the other day in that draft.
Yeah, they were.
That's all I need to hear.
They were crazy, ridiculous good. That was the best defense I've seen in I don't know how long.
That Georgia defense was nasty.
It was.
I don't think it'll be better than Clemson 2018.
Oh, I don't know. They just didn't let people even run their offense. They're just throwing guards into the backfield at running back. It's just they're just disrupting plays. It's just crazy how good they were. Okay.
You said 15 years. Who 15 years ago was better?
What's that?
15 years. Who? 15
I just threw out 15 years, 50 years, whatever time frame you want to throw out. They're as good as I can think of anybody being, especially against this day and age of type of offense that's being played. All right, I got two other quarterback questions, and you guys know you can jump off anytime you need to. I appreciate your time. First one would be getting back to the quarterback situation this season. So I guarantee it's run through all of our minds way before just about anybody else. But now it's become kind of a standard narrative that everybody, even non-Clemson fans, are throwing out there that this is going to be 2018 all over again. Kelly Bryant starts. Dabo sees that he can win an ACC championship game with any of us playing quarterback. So he wants to win the whole thing. Trevor Lawrence is the guy. Insert him. He's a legend, 30 TDs, 4 picks. He's the guy. Dabo makes the right move. Does he do the same thing this year with DJ early and then makes that transition to Cade Klubnik?
If DJ still struggles, I think they absolutely make the switch. But at the same time, I don't think this is like 2018. In 2018, you had Trevor Lawrence waiting in the wings. That kid probably would have been the number 1 draft pick coming out of high school. And as good as Cade Klubnik is, he ain't Trevor Lawrence right now. So, and this decision is not quite as cut and dry as some people think. Kid weighs 185, 190 pounds right now. You got to take into account, can he make it physically, take the beating that he's going to take throughout the season and stay healthy? If we make this switch, we got to make it knowing full well there's a possibility we're going to have to turn right back to the guy that we just benched. And then what's going to happen if he is even there and hasn't entered the portal? Fortunately, Clemson will have Hunter Johnson, but still, I just don't think this is like 2018, as cut and dry as it was in 2018. Having said all that, I don't think Dabo Swinney is going to risk losing football games out of any, blind loyalty to any one player, even a quarterback. If DJ still struggles and Klubnik's ready, I don't think that coaching staff even has any issues pulling the trigger. They'll make the switch when it needs to be made.
Well, we know Dabo's already set the precedent. He always says he's going to play the best player. So, and I believe him. Because he's shown that in the past. I do see some similarities between 2018 and this season. You say that Klubnik is not Trevor Lawrence. Well, he kind of. Not physically, he's not. But the guy never lost a high school game. He went undefeated 3 seasons in a row and won 3 Texas State championships. That's better than what Trevor Lawrence did in high school. Now, I'm not saying he's Trevor Lawrence. There's still the jury is out on that. But I think the expectations for Klubnik are very high. Well, at least in Clemson, South Carolina, they are. I don't know about nationally. But I think the expectations are high for him, and I think we'll know by Game 5 who's going to be the solidified starter. If DJ struggles through those, I mean, the first 4 games should be easy win. Now, there's no such thing as an easy win, but none of those teams are on Clemson's level, right? So if he struggles in any one of those games or multiple games, I think you will see Klubnik by Game 5.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it. Don't get me wrong. Now, I'm not saying that I think Klubnik's going to be a stud.
Yeah,
I am extremely high on him, have been from the jump. I just think the ideal situation would be letting him be able to physically develop for a year, But
yeah,
I'm with you. I don't think there will be any hesitations to make a switch if that's what needs to take place.
And I've been telling
I think
people,
DJ going to be good. I don't think it's going to be a quarterback controversy because I think the offensive line is going to play a lot better, and we got receivers that can different type of receivers this year. I just think DJ's going to play good this year.
there's always going to be a quarterback controversy when you have 2 5-star quarterbacks on your roster. I mean, at least as far as the fans are concerned, there'll be a controversy. Maybe not in the locker room or anything like that. I've been telling people, I want DJ to succeed. I would rather Klubnik redshirt and let DJ play out the season, because if he finishes the entire season, that means he's both healthy and playing good. And of course, I like DJ as a person, but at the end of the day, I don't want to be losing to teams we should be losing to just because we, aren't playing the right guy at quarterback. So we'll see.
Mayhem Matthew is really high on Will Levis from Kentucky being an elite quarterback. And he may turn out to be one this year, but he threw 13 picks. I don't think he's an elite quarterback. I've seen him play enough, unless your elite list is like 20 long. So anyway, then my final question would be this. You guys went back to 2015-16. You brought up Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, even Taj Boyd. I think you guys are going to agree with me on this, and I can't believe I get on here all the time and I defend Dabo Swinney. And then another route I go on the Clemson side is saying to people all the time that I think that based on what I hear, Deshaun Watson is one of the most underrated great players of all time. Like, this guy is not just a great Clemson player. He's not just a great Clemson player or ACC player. This guy's one of the greatest college football players of all time, period.
Sure.
To me,
What
he's
he
the
did
best
was
Clemson
remarkable.
quarterback ever. I mean,
The ultimate it factor, we always talk about the intangible factor. The guy's a winner. The guy wills the team to win. We saw what he did against Alabama twice, 15 and 16. Alabama had better teams than Clemson did both those years. I mean, on paper. And that was almost all Deshaun Watson. I mean,
yeah, him and Cam Newton, best 2 quarterbacks I've ever seen in college football.
Yeah.
I tend to agree that the dude's got ice water in his veins. The moment's never too big for him. Like Pete said, he will put the whole team on his back and will you to win, not carry you. He will you to a win. That's just something you don't see in very many players these days anymore. If you're starting a team from scratch and you need a quarterback, that's who I want every time. Every time. I'll take him over Trevor Lawrence, Taj Boyd, any of those guys. Give me Deshaun Watson.
I agree, 100%.
Miguel Chavis lives down the street from me. Played defensive tackle at Clemson. He felt like if he would have started that Georgia game his freshman year, Clemson might have won a national championship that year, or been really good that year. So, and I think he's there. So I think that Georgia Tech game should come off his record as a loss.
You go back to that Deshaun Watson's freshman season, there was a couple of games he wasn't able to finish because he got hurt, dinged up. I remember Louisville was one of those games, and he came into the season just like Klubnik's going to come into the season, right at 200 pounds, a little on the thin side. So a little similarity there too. So that's kind of what I'm getting at when I was talking about, Klubnik needing a little more time physically.
I would like to address the question in the comment section, only because I hear this a lot, and people ask me this a lot, by Desmond Upshaw there. He says, let's say Clemson doesn't make the CFP. Any eyes start looking at Dabo? The answer is no, and hell no, sir. Dabo Swinney is one of probably 3 or 4 coaches in the country who's built up enough clout that not making the college football playoff is not going to get him on the hot seat. It's going to have to go way, way downhill from there for anything to even come close to a hot seat for Dabo Swinney. I'm talking 2 and 3 win seasons, multiple in a row. So
I'll take that a step further and say Dabo Swinney will be the one to decide when Dabo Swinney is no longer the coach.
There you go. Yep.
And the thing for me, besides a few other things, but one aspect of what he's accomplished that separates him from just about everybody else, not named Nick Saban, and Urban Meyer's obviously not in the game right now, is that, Lincoln Riley inherited Oklahoma. He just kept it rolling. Ryan Day inherited Ohio State. You're talking about top 3 to 5 programs in the country, and just about anywhere else you name. Dabo, it wasn't a bad football program, so I don't want to say that he took over Kansas by any stretch of the imagination, but look at what he did. Look at what he built. My goodness.
Yeah, that Clemson, not saying there wasn't some things in place, because obviously there was. Tommy Biden kind of laid a little bit of the foundation, but Clemson is mostly Dabo Swinney's vision. It's all him. It's his baby. He built it from the ground up, and that's why I have a hard time believing all these people that think he would just up and leave to go back to Alabama when Nick Saban gets ready to leave. Number one, I don't think Dabo Swinney's. I think he's smarter than that. The guy that's going to follow Saban. That's a no-win situation. I think Dabo Swinney's much smarter than that. But, why leave something that you built to go take over something somebody else built? I don't get it. But, yeah, Clemson is Dabo Swinney's baby.
It is. I don't think people realize he's been at Clemson longer than he was ever at Alabama, even as a player and a coach combined at Alabama. So,
and it's also home. Alabama's not home to his kids. Clemson is home to all of his kids now. That's where they grew up. It's what they know as home.
I could see a scenario possibly because he's still a relatively young guy in the coaching world, right? Early 50s. What is he, 51, 50, something like that? 20 years down the road, if he wants to go back to Alabama for a year or two to end his career as a swan song, go back home to his alma mater. But anytime in the near future, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying never say never. Never say never, because I'm with you there now. Way down the line, a coach or two removed from Saban.
Yep.
Depending on you never know. You get a change in leadership at Clemson, a new president, a new AD. They don't see eye to eye. You never know what might happen. I just don't see any scenario where he's the guy that follows behind Nick Saban.
Yeah, we just saw Jay Wright leave at Villanova. Maybe he gets burned out just like Jay Wright did, and just says, "Hey, I'm gonna hang it up." That's the only way I see him leaving. I mean, as far as what Mark was saying, and Mark will tell you this. I bring this up all the time. For 1977 to 1991, I talk about how good Clemson was, and I even say 1977, Clemson should go back and play that national championship because they only lost one game, and so did Alabama and USC. And I will say this about Clemson. I just don't think Clemson's going anywhere anytime soon. They still recruit at a high level. I mean, the NIL is what it is. I mean, that's the world we live in. And I think it's going to help kids in a little while, because why go be a 5th round pick and make $400,000 or $500,000? You still can make that while you're still in college and finish up your degree. So I'd rather stay in college for an extra year.
It depends on people's expectation too. When you talk about, they always talk about teams falling off or, not being elite anymore. Everybody's opinion on what elite is different. If your standard is to win a national championship every 2 years, then nobody can live up to that. I mean, maybe Alabama can at this point, but nobody can live up to that. It's a ridiculous standard to live up to. That's why when people say, if you don't make the college football playoff every year, you're not elite. That's a ridiculous statement when you have 131 teams and there's 4 spots to get in there. I mean,
absolutely. I say that all the time when people ask me, is Dabo going to keep this up? Is Clemson going to keep this up? I don't see it happening. And I go, I don't see it happening either, because if you understand odds, if you understand probabilities, to keep up a 90-plus winning percentage is unlikely anywhere. It's unlikely if Nick Saban coached another 15 years at Alabama that he could keep up his winning percentage. It's mathematically extremely difficult to do. It's just unlikely that you're going to keep up that pace. So my odds are against Dabo Swinney, not because I don't have faith in Dabo Swinney and how good he is. It's just, it's unlikely that you're going to keep up a 1-loss pace for season after season after season. Just
law of averages.
Yeah.
Can I address this Terrence West super chat? Of course.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sending the super chat. I'm sure he appreciates it. Clemson can't afford to fall further in the recruiting rankings. All right. Now, first of all, a top 10 recruiting class this year, is that a bad recruiting class? A top 10 recruiting class? And also, when they went to the national championship in 2015 and won the national championship in 2016, the players on that team were an average recruiting class of 13. Since then, they're averaging what probably in the top 5 or 6. Jason, is that about right? Since 2016,
somewhere between 5 and 7.
Yeah. So I don't know, sir. I mean, you could look at some teams like Texas and Texas A&M that are recruiting in the top 5 annually, and what do they have to show for it? I'm not saying recruiting doesn't matter, but there's not much of a difference between the top 5 recruiting class and the top 12 recruiting class. On paper, there's not.
Clemson was on its way to a top 5 recruiting class last year.
Yeah.
And they lost Brent Venables and lost a large chunk of that recruiting class. I mean, they had to scramble, replace 5, 6 guys. I can't remember how many it was off the top of my head. 5 or 6 guys, add a couple more developmental guys, still finish with a top 10 class in at least some of the recruiting rankings. I know they finished top 10 at ours at Sports Illustrated, but if you look ahead to this recruiting class, they've only got 4 guys committed so far. I think they're on the way to finishing somewhere. If I had to call it right now, they'll be around in a top 5, 6, 7 recruiting class in 2023.
Yeah, recruiting is Dabo's problem ever.
Yeah, and look at Texas. I mean, like you just said, what do you consider to be elite? I mean, since 1970, when they won 1 national championship since then, so you basing your eliteness off of national championships or consistency winning 10, 11 games or even 9 games. I mean, I don't know what you consider elite.
To me, Texas, not to play semantics, but Texas is a blue blood, but they're not elite. They're nothing close to elite. Nobody could argue that they are elite. Yeah. They're barely going 500, so they've been awful for 12 years, basically. But just to go back to the recruiting question or comment there, Pete, I'll not completely disagree with you, but I will say that I think that there's a difference between 5 and 12 in the recruiting rankings. Like I looked at Ohio State and Michigan recently because we were having a debate about that. And Ohio State just went number 4 in the recruiting rankings, and Michigan was 8. But if you look at the difference in the numbers, the metrics of the player rating, that 4 versus 8 was the same distance as 8 and 23. So I do think it tumbles pretty quickly. But I will say in Clemson's defense, that was a small recruiting class, right? So the player rating was a lot higher.
Yeah.
The class was small. So the per player rating was much better than whatever finished number 9 or 8, whatever the number was.
Yeah,
that tends to be the case most years.
Recruiting totally matters. I mean, there's a direct correlation between recruiting well and making the playoffs and winning national championships. I'm not saying that it's not, but there's 2 things that go hand in hand that goes overlooked: recruiting and player development. You can recruit great, but if your coaching staff isn't able to develop players very well, and that's what we've seen sort of like at Texas. Texas is a prime example of this. Recruiting top 5 classes, I think 5 out of the last 6 years or something, and they can't even win their own conference. So yeah, that's my point. Is Clemson has proven that they, even if they have a quote unquote down recruiting year as a top 10 recruiting class, the player development has never been a problem at Clemson, at least under Swinney.
I also think that you guys had that trigger guy. You guys had Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. That makes up for a lot of recruiting.
That definitely makes up for some of it, no doubt about it. If you got a generational talent at quarterback, you can mask some deficiencies along the offensive line that I think Clemson did have in 2015, 2016, 2018. But they had that generational quarterback who could cover some of that up. Didn't have it last year, and it hurt.
Mm-hmm.
All right, folks. Appreciate everybody being here. We topped about 100 online. Appreciate you being here, but most of you missed phenomenal conversation. So head on back. Just check out the post. It should be posted here, this video, in about 10 or 15 minutes. So catch what you missed. These guys are phenomenal, and I knew we'd have a great discussion as soon as I asked them on. So let's head on over to Pigskin Pete's channel on YouTube. Pigskin, what do you got working these days?
A little bit of everything, Mark. I think you hit on it at the beginning of the show. A lot about Clemson, a lot about college football. I would classify my YouTube channel, if you're not familiar with it, as sports and entertainment, with an asterisk on the "and entertainment" part. We talk about a little bit about everything over there. So it's a lot of fun, especially during the off season when we cut up over there a lot and have a good time. So that's it.
Awesome.
Tell Bobby I said hi, Pete.
I will, man.
Jason, allclemson.com on SI. What have you been working on?
A lot of recruiting stuff. If you like recruiting, man, come on over. I'm working on a lot of recruiting stuff here in the next week or two.
DeAndre, appreciate you being here, man. DeAndre calls me up all the time, always has an interesting topic for me, always challenges me with something to respond to, and appreciate your support, Dre. What are you working on? What are you up to? Where can people find you?
BJO Football Funk. Right now, I'm working on my obesity. I'm really tackling it that, and I hope people take it more seriously. I don't know if y'all know this, but I had a kind of a scare of a heart attack. But, I luckily didn't say it was anxiety. I work a lot. But right now, I'm trying to push obesity, focus on my Pittsburgh Steelers, Clemson, trying to do a little better with East Carolina because that's where I went to school at. But I was, like y'all know, I was born a Clemson fan because my family went to school down there. I'm very attached to that school. But that's what I'm focusing on. And I hope people take their weight and their blood pressure seriously because we really do. And obesity is a big problem in our society. So I hope people check out the channel. As a matter of fact, I'm on my 20th hour of fasting right now. People say, well, take it slow. Sometimes you got to jump head into it because I've been fasting for the last couple of days. So that's something that I'm taking on.
Man, that is phenomenal. Good for you.
All right.
That is, yeah.
Awesome.
That is a good word for a lot of people out there. Thanks for that, Dre.
Stay away from the sugar and the soda, especially that Mountain Dew. That get you.
Man. I just knocked down a couple bowls of ice cream last night, man. I can't kick the habit. Pete, appreciate you being here, man. Know you got a lot going on.
It was good to see y'all.
Thanks, Jason and Dre, you guys as well. We will see you soon. Appreciate you being here. Everybody else, our next show is coming up 5:30 Eastern, Iowa Hawkeyes live on the Iowa channel. So join us then. Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate it, Mark. See y'all later.